But you have to raise your hands, or I can't answer your questions. Yes?
Well, I have one stupid question and one legitimate question.
Okay, stupid question first.
Stupid question first. During any of the time that you've been touring and speaking and answering questions and reading from your book, has anyone ever interrupted you by shouting, "Take off your clothes"?
No, that's a funny joke. I get that joke. But lots of people don't, and they're uncomfortable. It's a reference to the end of Looking for Alaska when someone's speaking and it turns out to be a stripper. Other question?
Yes, actually a legitimate question. I'm getting a Master's of Education and going back to teach high school after 20 years of doing things that weren't teaching high school. And I'm in a teaching the young adult novel class right now, and one of the main things we've been discussing as a theme is that it's very difficult to get young men to read books. It's far easier for young women. So much of young adult fiction now is centered on girls, whether or not the person narrating is a girl. What do you suggest for an instructor to bring them into something like Looking for Alaska or Abundance of Catherine's? How do you sell it, let's say?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think a lot of English instruction in high school is forcing kids to read stuff that they don't know that they want to read until they're 100 pages into reading it, and that's a very difficult thing to do. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a mix of there being more compelling media and also that there aren't a lot of. I mean, at least in terms of the way young adult books are published, like they just aren't targeted to guys because it's a self-perpetuating story. Guys don't read, so we don't publish for guys, so guys don't read. So, I mean, it's a chicken and egg issue to me, and I don't really know the solution to it except trying to bridge the gender divide by doing 2 covers or something. Yes?
I really could talk to you afterwards because
Go meet up with her.
I teach teen lit.
Oh, cool.
High school kids.
Oh, good.
And I can give you some ideas.
So go talk.
Thank you.
Yes, the girl. Can you stand up for a second? If you've read the prologue of Paper Towns, pink shirt, green dragon, breathing a fire of orange glitter. That is the shirt that Margot is wearing when she's 9. When you imagine something and then it becomes real, that's a very weird feeling. It's fun though. Your question though?
Yes. When you're writing, like, do you ever have like a day or maybe like a week where you just like look at what you're writing and you just like don't want to write anymore? And like, how do you get over that if you do?
The question is about like what happens when I have a day where I don't want to write or a week where I don't want to write.
Or like you just hate what you're.
And I hate what I'm writing. I mean, I hate what I'm writing, but more than for a week in a row. Definitely. I mean, I think you have to give yourself permission not to be very good. Like, if you have this expectation that every morning you're going to wake up and you're going to write The Great Gatsby, then you're going to be disappointed because not even F. Scott Fitzgerald woke up every morning and wrote The Great Gatsby. F. Scott Fitzgerald woke up every morning for like 1,000 consecutive mornings and wrote little pieces of stuff that later got deleted on the path to becoming The Great Gatsby. So I think that you have to give yourself permission to make mistakes and permission to just write. And then, because to me, like the core of how a book becomes a book isn't in that initial period of writing anyway. It's in the process of revision and learning to think more about the reader and what the experience of the reader will be, which for me at least I can't really do until I finish the first draft. So I try not to worry too much. I try to tell myself it's okay to suck. Yes?
When Dr. Holden is explaining about the main character of Moby Dick being like extremely obsessed with finding this whale and stuff, did you mean for that to reflect Q's feelings about Margot?
Yes. The question is, when Dr. Holden in the book is talking about Moby Dick, did I mean for that to have implications for the story? Yeah, definitely. Dr. Holden is talking about Moby Dick, and then the book has a lot of, or at least I don't know if it has references to it, but I was thinking a lot about Moby Dick and Ahab when I was thinking about Q's sort of journey to trying to understand what happened to Margot, because I wanted it to mirror that, but I also wanted Q to be, he never reads Moby Dick in the book, but he still forms an opinion about Moby Dick, which I think is a common high school phenomenon. You're like, Ahab's a hero, but you don't know what Ahab did because you didn't read the book. And I wanted him to be in some ways saved by what Ahab doesn't have, which is peers. You know, there's no one in Captain Ahab's life to say, you know what's crazy? This. So I wanted there to be a certain tension there. Yes?
when you are thinking of an idea for a book, is it just like out of nowhere all of a sudden, or is it...
That's a good question. The question is, when I'm thinking about an idea for a book, is it just all out of nowhere all of a sudden, or is it just kind of a process?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not one of those writers who like wakes up in the morning and it's like, wizard school. I wish I were. Or like, vampires in suburbia. Like, I didn't have like a dream about paper towns and then wake up and write it down and then become fantastically rich or anything. My favorite books don't have good ideas. Like, what is the idea for The Catcher in the Rye? Like, a kid gets kicked out of boarding school and he walks around New York for 2 days. That's a terrible idea for a book. That sounds incredibly boring to me. It's all in the execution. It's in the little ideas inside the idea. And those little ideas inside the idea I have. I don't have big ideas. So I take those little ideas inside the ideas and I try to organize them in a way that will allow me to sort of write a bigger story. But the bigger story doesn't come to me except in the form of little tiny moments. So for instance, when I was thinking, I mean, for like the whole history of this book until like almost the last draft, the dead guy, Robert Joyner, that you meet in the prologue, his name wasn't Robert Joyner, even in the galley. But for most of the drafts, he wasn't a dead guy slumped against a tree. He was a guy who fell out of the sky and landed like 5 feet away from them, which is like dramatic but utterly implausible. Like, people fall out of the sky. People do fall out of the sky about 3 times a year. Usually corpses, like they're corpses before they fall out of the sky, but it wasn't common. And I felt like in a novel, that already like stretched plausibility enough. Like there was a place for it and a place not for it. But anyway, that was back when the book was about different stuff. But like, that idea of like these 2 little kids who encounter a dead person and that's the only thing that they ever did together until they end up doing something else together 10 years later, I had that little idea, but that's not a book. That's just the prologue. So those little ideas, I think I have to like try to build in a way that makes it into a story. Mrs. Zulke? Or, are you Mrs. Zulke?
I'm whatever you want.
Are you Miss?
No, you kept names.
You kept your names?
She's got cash.
Well, you have Zulke.com, so you can't really have like Zulke-Delahoy.com. That won't work.
Doesn't work.
I wanted to know, speaking of those little ideas, have you ever had to cut something out of one book just because it didn't work or whatever, and did you ever reuse it because you liked the idea so much that you wanted to see if you could make it work?
I have cut stuff that I really, really liked. And it is hugely painful. Whenever I have to do that, I always go back. I wish I had it with me, and I read the original first chapter of Robert Penn Warren's novel, All the King's Men. The first page of the original draft is the most beautiful first page of writing I have ever read. And it is completely perfect, except that it doesn't work for the book. And he cut it. And if he can do that, if he can cut like that beautiful, perfect, pitch-perfect paragraph, like I can cut my little detective soliloquy or whatever, which is, I had to cut a lot of those. I had a very verbose detective. But about whether or not I use it later, yeah, I use stuff that I cut from Alaska in Catherine's. I don't think I used anything I cut in Paper Towns, but yeah, I used a bunch of stuff in Catherine's.